I would like to introduce what we're here to do. The Poor People's Campaign has identified 5 interlocking injustices. Those are systemic racism, poverty and inequality, ecological devastation, the war economy and militarism, and a false narrative of religious nationalism. 140,000, what is this? 140 million, okay, I'll get it out. 140 million people in the US are poor or low income. 250,000 people die every year in the United States prematurely because of poverty. Maybe you can't picture that. Let me give you a picture. That's enough dead bodies every year to go from here to Westerly and back and refresh those dead bodies every year. That's a silent pandemic that nobody ever talks about. Let that sink in, please. The campaign has identified 14 policy priorities to address all these problems. There's an additional thing, which is voter suppression is sweeping the country. There are 250 bills right now being considered in state houses across the nation to suppress voting. Well, you'll hear more about Rhode Island in that respect. We're not squeaky clean either. Because as a matter of fact, unless we change something in this country, unless the legislature passes a bill, there will be a very oppressive voter signature bill where the voters who vote, mail in the ballots, send in mail ballots, will have to have witnesses to make sure that everybody understands that that's okay. Well, it's not okay to do that because not everybody can find those witnesses. It suppresses people, and it suppresses in particular the poor and the marginalized communities in this country. People today will testify about how all of these injustices impact their lives. For some, this is very difficult to do in public. We spoke to a friend who went to justify. Her son stood in the trajectory of a stray bullet and ended up in a wheelchair. There were bills to be paid, there were lawyers to be paid, there were healthcare costs associated with it. All of these things are very, very difficult to talk about in public, and not everybody can do that. So after she agreed to do this, she got a call and said, I can't do it. And as you know, the law that had to be paid, the law is an ass and it carries water for the ruling class. Our friend simply couldn't testify. I grew up in the Netherlands after World War II in a Jewish community where 80% of the people had been murdered. We learned the statistics, but we were never just talking about why so many of my friends had no grandparents. If you would have asked me, I would have known. It had never entered my mind. It was never talked about because it was too painful. A kid in my class went on and he became a journalist at some point. And when he retired, he wrote a piece and he said, I never realized, I was never told by my parents that the silverware which we used to eat every day had belonged to people who had been murdered. It wasn't talked about. So I could go on, and I'm not a religious person, yet I understand what Ecclesiastes said. I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. And then went on and said, I looked and saw all the oppression that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and I saw they had no comforter. Power was on the side of the oppressors, and they had no comforter. May I ask for a brief silence? People think words are not here because they cannot speak. I will leave you to think about whatever it is that you want to think about. Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Mic check!
Somebody is hurting our people!
Somebody is hurting our people!
It's gone on way too long!
It's gone on way too long!
And we won't be silent anymore!
And we won't be silent anymore!